What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Wilbur and Gold Show. I'm your host, Will Dalton, aka Wilbur and Gold, on a Wednesday, January the 13th. It's my first show since the start of the new year. Hope everybody had a good holiday. Hope everybody had a good new year. So right off the bat, and actually, by the way, this is the first show I've done in a while during the day, as you can see by the, literally, if I were to open this window right now, the sun is literally right there. I mean, it's like, it's right over my shoulder, literally. So the only way that this was going to work and you not just be blinded would be to put the shades down. So usually I do this at night, and so there's no light back there, and so it's a little different. But I kind of want to start doing this during the day a little more. So right off the gate, or right out the gate, I don't know how people say this stuff. Right out the gate, man, did we have a lot of good football this weekend. A lot of good NFL football. Wild card weekend. Steelers look like trash, like the Super Bowl frauds that they were. I don't even know if I want to say Super Bowl frauds. Just a playoff. Good team. They were just frauds, just straight up frauds. Like I can't even put them. I can't even put the word Super Bowl in the same breath as the Steelers this year. They were just straight up frauds. Browns looked incredible. Baker Mayfield's maturing right in front of our eyes. Josh Allen's doing the same. Bills, streaks, playoffs, losing streaks being snapped. Bucks won their first playoff game since they won the Super Bowl back in 2002, or if that's whatever year it was they won it. Browns winning their first playoff game in almost a century. Bills winning their first playoff game in however many decades it's been. So a lot of good stuff, a lot of good football. And you know what the best part about it to me is we got so much more to go. That was just the tip of the iceberg. That was just wild card weekend. We hadn't even scratched that's literally all we've done is just barely scratch the surface. It's going to be so good. I mean, we got Green Bay, going up against, who do they play? They play the Rams, don't they? I mean, you got Green Bay, you got the Rams, you got Tampa Bay, you got the Saints, you got the Bills, you got the Browns, you got the Chiefs, you got the Ravens. I mean, so many good teams, so many good quarterbacks. Get ready. Buckle up. It's going to be a good, it's going to be really good the rest of the way. So I'll start here. How about these cinematic views? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, so a lot of you have noticed, I'm pretty sure this is a Fox thing. I think it's specifically happening on Fox. I don't know that CBS or NBC is doing this. So have you guys noticed that these NFL presentations are look like they were shot on an eyeball, with the depth of field and the up close, and just the what do you call it? The frame rate. It literally looks like almost a Madden cinematic presentation. That's how good and clear these shots look. It looks incredible. And it's really cool. So, also, NFC East is going to be a little interesting this year. I find them kind of intriguing, and I know the only thing that we usually find intriguing about the NFC East is how bad they are. But I mean, when I think about it, every single team in the division is interesting because it's Washington won the division, and typically, or for most of the year, or for the last couple of years, it's the winner of the NFC East is just psh, psh. But I gotta say, I think Washington legitimately earned it, and I think they were deserving of being in the playoffs. I mean, they were a very good team with really bad circumstances. I mean, a really elite defense. I mean, maybe one of the best defenses in the league by far. But, really a bad quarterback situation, a tough situation with their head coach, Ron Rivera, who used to be the head coach of my Carolina Panthers. And he's personally my favorite. He's my favorite NFL coach, hands down. Haskins did not work out. He wasn't a guy. I kind of had hoped he would do well, and he just didn't pan out. I still think he's got another shot in him with another team. Maybe we'll see. But Haskins didn't work out. Alex Smith, obviously, which it would be. It's not even humanly possible that he doesn't get the comeback player of the year. Like, it's just not possible. In fact, they might even name the damn award after him after this year, and everything he's been through. And to actually not only did he come back. I mean, it was breaking news that he even got back onto the field. Period. I mean, the guy had like 17 leg surgeries after that awful hit he took 2 years ago in the knee or wherever it was in his leg. Had like 17 surgeries. Supposedly could have potentially lost his leg. That's how bad it was. And you come back and you get a couple of snaps. And I mean, that broke news. And then a few weeks later, you find out, oh, I'm going to start. Like, okay. So that in itself is impressive. And then to get to the playoffs, and then Heineke comes in, which I'd forgotten all about. Heineke. Turns out he was a backup for the Carolina Panthers a couple of years ago. I'd forgotten all about him, and he actually wasn't that bad. He was kind of solid. So I remember him pretty well now. Went to the XFL for a season last year, and then came in, and that dude was clean as fuck. I mean, clean as fuck. So good. Complete, especially late when it matters. I mean, that's what I mean. Like, he was clean. He was completing so many of his passes. Like, I mean, really, really good. Really impressive. I actually thought that was my most Washington and Tampa Bay. That was the matchup I was most intrigued by and excited to watch, because I just didn't understand the mindset that some people had where they just didn't see it as a matchup at all. A lot of people just thought, they were making a big deal out of nothing. And it's just like, no, I mean, Washington's pretty good. Got a good defense. Now, Chase Young didn't do anything. He was talking about, I want Tom. He didn't get Tom very much. Now, I think he's going to get Tom's jersey, because I think he wanted to swap jerseys with him after the game, because of COVID and everything. They're going to have to, like, mail him. But I mean, he's young, so what do you expect? But I felt like that had the potential to be a legit upset situation, and it damn near was. I mean, Heineke was looking good there at the end, and they just didn't quite have enough to get it to the finish line. But so, point being, Washington's going to be better. I mean, you heard Chase Young talking about it after the game. I mean, they're going to be a force to be right. I mean, this is just the beginning. Like, they don't have a legit quarterback situation yet. Ron Rivera was having to take IVs at halftime just to get in, because he was doing chemo because of cancer. He beat it. And again, just a lot of good stories with Washington after everything they've dealt with over the, years, and, changing the name and everything. So yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see. Like, I've seen some people, think that Cam Newton might be an interesting fit for Washington, getting back. And don't forget, Kyle Allen was the backup, and he was, playing there for a little while, but he got hurt like that as soon as he went in. So we, and he came from the Panthers. That's actually kind of interesting that both of the backups that Ron Rivera had with the Panthers a couple years ago, or last year, I should say, between Heineke and Kyle Allen, they both ended up with him on Washington, and coming in and getting some backup time. Heineke, obviously, who had the most meaningful time, because Kyle Allen, I mean, he got hurt pretty quick, before it really even mattered that much. So, but no, I've heard some people talking about Cam Newton could be an interesting fit. I personally would love to see that. I would love to see Cam reunited with Ron Rivera. Because that's, and well, I'm a Panthers fan, and so, Cam is my favorite player. Was my quarterback for 9 years. Hated to see him go, but I love Teddy Bridgewater, though. I think he's I think he's better than people give him credit. I'm not 100% sure what the move is at quarterback for the Panthers just yet. I think we'll talk about that probably on one of the next episodes. But Cam is my favorite player. Ron Rivera is my favorite coach. And I would love to see them reunite. They went to a Super Bowl together, spent 9 years together. Ron Rivera, was the coach for Cam when he first entered the league back in 2011, I think it was. And I just think I don't think Cam Newton's done. Like, I know it's not a very popular, it's an even less popular thing to say now than it was a year ago, but I don't think Cam's done as a starter in the NFL. I think he's going to have to go to a specific team in order to be a starter. His options are not going to be as broad as they were a year ago. A year ago, hands down, he was a starter on not any team. He ain't going to start over Patrick Mahomes. He ain't going to start over Josh Allen. He's not going to start over Aaron Rodgers. But you know what I mean? Like, for most teams that are in the market because those teams aren't in the market for a quarterback. But most teams that are in the market for a quarterback, Cam's starting. Like, this notion that Jared Stidham was somehow going to start over Cam was nonsense. And it ended up being nonsense. But, I don't condemn Cam completely, because at least for this year with the Patriots, because he played really, really well at times. Like, he led the NFL in rushing touchdowns with 12, I think it was. And he had no weapons. Like, he thought his weapons, was bad on Carolina, which they weren't. They were actually pretty solid and got even better. Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore this year. Like, the cupboard was empty for the Patriots. Like, now you know what Tom Brady was having to deal with. Like, for all the people talking about, Tom had no weapons. He didn't have any weapons. And so you take a quarterback who's, reliant on his legs, and you don't give him any weapons to mix it up on occasion. Like, that's going to be easy to stop a lot of the time. First couple of weeks of the season, he tore it up and nobody could stop him. But eventually somebody's going to be able to stop that. He might get on a run again, but somebody's going to stop it again. Like, you got to have a running back behind you to get the play action going. You got to have receivers. His issue is his passing. And so that, we'll see what happens with that. But I just think, I think he's still a starter in the league. I really do. I think he played good enough this year. And when you consider his circumstances, the no weapons that he was working with, I think he deserves, and I mean this in all sincerity, one final shot with a little bit of just something to work with. He had nothing to work with other than, Bill Belichick, but Bill Belichick can go out there and play with him. Like, you got to have players to move around with him. Like, it doesn't mean anything if you got the best coach. Like, you got to have good players too. And so I think Cam played well enough this year to at least deserve one final shot with a decent team with decent enough weapons for him to work with. I think Washington could be that. There's that new McLaurin, I think his name is, the receiver that played really well this year for Washington. I think that could be it. I think being with Coach Rivera again could be a great fit. And again, Washington's in the market for a quarterback. As much as I loved Heineke and how he played, and I actually think he would be great to stay there as a backup, like the backup. Either him or Kyle Allen, they would have to fight for that job. I think Cam would be a great fit in Washington again. To just one final shot with a decent team, not a team deprived of any type of weapons where he's just left out to dry and he's got nothing to work with other than his legs, and that's only going to take you so far. I think he deserves that. I think he played well enough to at least have that. And then if it doesn't work after that, now, depending on what team he were to go to, he would be a backup. I got to say, it depends on the circumstance. Do I think he's good enough to start on most teams? No. I think he's going to have to go to a specific situation where there's obviously no quarterback there that could stand in his way. There isn't in Washington. There isn't on a handful of teams. He's going to have to go to a situation like that, or else he will have to be a backup. I will say that, but, we'll see what happens. So, moving on to a completely different topic. That's the great thing about this show. As it's kind of, this is episode 20, by the way, of this show, as it's kind of evolved, and as I've kind of tried to figure out the route I want to take it. It started out as, I guess, me not knowing where I wanted to go with it, what I wanted to talk about. So I just kind of talked about, like, I don't know, motivational stuff or whatever, or just, life experiences for me, even though I'm very young. So, I can only go so far at this point, at least where people even listen. And then I thought, well, let's just do all sports, because I love sports. That's one of the many things I like to talk about. Keywords, they're one of the many things I like to talk about. And, to that point, I was like, well, I feel like I'm kind of cutting myself short here, because this is the Wilbur and Gold show. If this is going to be my show, my podcast, it's like, well, let's talk about all the things I'm interested in. So, 1 minute we're talking about Cam Newton and Washington and NFL. And now we're going to talk about some Game of Thrones, which is something I haven't talked about a lot on this show yet. That'll change. And then we're going to get into some Star Wars here in just a minute. So, like I said, a little bit of everything. You never know what to expect. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. That's just how I roll. So House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones spinoff prequel series, if you will. It starts production this year. Don't know when in the year, but I assume pretty soon, if not already. They've got a cast and everything, so it's pretty much underway already. But it's basically going to be a prequel that's like 300 years or so before the events of Game of Thrones. So obviously there won't be any cameos. At least I wouldn't think, unless you like went into the future and said, "Oh, maybe this could happen," and Daenerys shows up, and I don't know, but. It's based on House Targaryen. I forget. I think it was Aegon the Conqueror they're going to cover, who kind of set up House Targaryen in power and all that, and built the Iron Throne out of the thousands of swords and melted them together. I think that's the story that they're going to be going through. As far as I know, they're only signed on for one season right now, and I guess they'll see how it goes. It'll be out in 2022, I think. And I guess the only thing I want to really get into real quick is don't let season 8 of Game of Thrones, which left a bad taste in, good God, so many people's mouths. Not me. I loved it, actually. I loved it. I will be the minority and put that stake in the ground and say I loved Game of Thrones season 8. Loved it. All of it. Do I wish things would have ended a little bit differently than they did in the end? Yes. But that didn't cause me to have a bad taste in my mouth about the show and about the season and how it ended. I guess I'm kind of a minority on this, because I have to deal with it in Star Wars too, because so many people hated the sequel trilogy, specifically The Last Jedi. More people than I thought would hated The Rise of Skywalker. In fact, of all the movies and the sequels that people dislike the most or dislike the least, I actually felt like The Force Awakens was the most popular of the sequels. Obviously, Last Jedi isn't. It's the most hated. I think Rise of Skywalker is the second most hated, because I think it was a lot, and obviously people didn't like the whole Rey Skywalker thing. People don't like how, Kylo Ren turned just back into Ben Solo and basically had no more lines throughout the rest of the movie. People didn't like the whole Reylo thing, Ben, reviving Rey, they kiss and dies. Ben Solo dies, and that's that. People didn't like that. So I would say The Force Awakens was the most well-received because, it was the first time seeing the Falcon again, first time seeing Han Solo again. And it was just overall, I other than the fact that a lot of people thought it was essentially like a remake, essentially, of New Hope, with the planet kill, the Death Star, which was now Star Killer Base, the sacrifice, which in A New Hope was Ben Kenobi. This time it was Han Solo. And just how all that played out. A lot of people thought it was almost kind of like a little bit of a redo of that. But I think for the most part, that was the most well-received, just because it was the first Star Wars movie we had gotten in almost a decade, basically a decade. 2005, Revenge of the Sith. 2014, Force Awakens. And because of those, Han Solo, all the reasons I already said, people kind of received that one the best, I think, because it was. I thought it was pretty well done how they did it. And then with a lot of fans, it went kind of downhill from there. But the point is, I'm kind of the minority in the sense that I tend to, and I understand and respect where people are coming from that hate the way Game of Thrones ended and hate The Last Jedi and hate The Rise of Skywalker on the Star Wars side of it. Because I know there's a lot of people who almost in just a religious sense to the point where they're just so dedicated to Luke Skywalker from the original trilogy, which I get because I'm that way. I'm that way with Anakin in the prequels, so I get it, which is why I'm excited to see him again in the Obi-Wan show. We'll talk about that a little more later. But I don't know. It's like, did The Last Jedi go the way I kind of expected it and kind of wanted it to go? No. Did The Rise of Skywalker go the way I wanted it to go? Kind of, sort of. I wish they hadn't killed Ben Solo because, when he turned, he kind of turned back into Ben Solo. He wasn't Kylo Ren anymore. I didn't like how that happened, but for the most part, in fact, you know what? I actually changed my mind on that. The only things that I didn't care for as much about Rise of Skywalker, because I loved seeing, I don't care what anybody says, the cloning and this and that. I loved seeing Palpatine again. That was one of my most exciting parts that I was ready for when it came out. I loved how they integrated, Luke back into it, which I assumed they would. I did not expect them to bring in Han Solo again for like the memory scene when Kylo Ren, turns back into Ben Solo. And for the most part, I really, really liked it. I think the only things that I didn't care for as much or was a little like, I don't like that and wish it would have been differently is Kylo Ren dying at the end. Just like that. And then it's not even a complaint because I loved what we got. I just was hoping for this and didn't get it. The scene where Rey is saying, "Be with me," where she's calling on all the Jedi past. And we heard all their voices. We heard Anakin's voice many times in that scene. We heard Obi-Wan. We heard Mace Windu. We heard Qui-Gon. We heard Ahsoka. We heard Kanan. A couple others from the prequels. I don't remember. Ayla Secura, I think we heard. Yoda, obviously Yoda. I think that was it. Might have missed one, but I got all the main ones. But that scene when we heard all their voices and they ganged up and beat the shit out of Palpatine, I wanted to see them. I wanted to see the Force Ghost behind her. And I think I speak for all of us for the most part when I say that. I think we really, which I'm content because I'm getting it. I wanted to see Anakin again, Hayden Christensen specifically. We're getting that, and we're getting it not as a Force Ghost, but as fucking Vader himself in the Obi-Wan show, which I'm psyched about. So I'm a little more content on that. But I really wanted to get all the Force Ghosts in the background. I thought that would have been maybe that could have potentially been one of the greatest scenes in Star Wars if it would have turned out that way. But the voices was fine. Like I was happy hearing that. I just I wanted to see them, because I think that would have been really cool. But I say all that to say this. I tend to lean more where even if I don't quite agree or don't care for or maybe slightly disappointed with how a story goes or a movie or show, specific, we're talking about Star Wars and Game of Thrones, I don't hate it. I don't find myself despising the creators of the show. I don't find myself doing that. Now, Rian Johnson, who was the director of The Last Jedi, I get it slightly because he really did a number on Luke's character, which That's the one part of it that I get. If somebody, I get it. Like, I still don't think I would just be like, fuck that guy. Because in a weird way, like, obviously the biggest reason people didn't like how he handled Luke was because, the Luke of the original trilogy, and after that, like we just saw in the finale on The Mandalorian, he was the hero. Him and Leia represented hope. They were, and they never gave up. And that's the big one, because a big part of Luke in Last Jedi was he gave up. He said, fuck it. I can't, I'm done. I've fucked this up too much. Just let it die. Let me die. Let the Jedi die, and let the problem be solved. And, that was that. And a lot of people despised Rian Johnson, and still despise Rian Johnson for doing that to Luke's character. So I get that. And I actually, didn't like how they did that, but I also could understand how Luke would end up that way, because you gotta understand, like, when he lost, I mean, he failed. And I get it, people are like, oh, he never gives up. But you gotta understand, when people died, like, people's lives were lost because, not because of Luke, because it wasn't ultimately he felt like it was his fault, but it wasn't in the big picture his fault, and we know that. But he felt like it was, and he lost the new Jedi Temple, all of the new Jedi that he was training, when Ben Solo turned into Kylo Ren and killed them all and destroyed the whole place. And yeah, that was that. And Luke just said, fuck it, I'm done. Like, I've essentially failed all these people. I'm the reason all these people are dead. I'm the reason all this is destroyed. I've tarnished, the Jedi. Like, I'm done. It's got to be done. I can understand how we would potentially get to that place. Did I like how they went that way with him? No, but I understand how, in the actual Star Wars, in the story itself, forget Rian Johnson doing that to Luke's character. Just go into the story itself and think about where Luke was at and how he felt like all those deaths and all that destruction was his fault. I can understand where he would just be like, I need to kill this thing. Like, it's my fault. Like, I got to destroy it. Like, I got to be done with it. I could slightly understand how we could get there. And I felt the same way about season 8 of Game of Thrones. I understand, and there was a lot of complaints on season 8 of Game of Thrones. It was a little more complex. I think, with The Last Jedi, it's mostly just Luke's character and how they did that. There's a lot of different things with season 8 of Game of Thrones. People thought the Night King was too easy to kill after literally an entire series, 8 seasons of building up that battle, the Battle of Winterfell, the Long Night, whatever you call it. Personally, I loved it. I loved how they brought Arya out of the midst and just boom, done. Wiped out Army of the Dead, White Walkers, Night King, done. I loved it. In fact, and again, I think I'm a minority here, season 8, episode 3 of Game of Thrones, The Long Night, favorite episode of the show, period. I've watched it so many more times than I've watched the show through, I think, 3 times now. I remember I watched it the first time, the first time I ever watched the show, which was actually while season 8 was going on. Like, that actually is what got me into it. Well, that and an ex-girlfriend I had at the time. It was actually her thing. Star Wars was my thing. Game of Thrones was her thing. And we started watching Game of Thrones. I'm like, this is a really good show, which obviously all of us did that loved the show so much. And I got into it then. And then I remember I watched it several months later after. I'm like, God, that was so good. I want to go through it again. Did that. And then during the pandemic, I watched it again. So I've watched it through 3 times, but I've literally looked up season 8, episode 3 on YouTube, because I don't have my HBO account anymore. I literally watched that episode so many damn times. It's just so good. I love it. So, that was a complaint. People thought that was a bit of a letdown. I didn't at all. And then obviously people thought that Daenerys just going batshit crazy and killing everybody was a problem. Again, I didn't, because I like seeing that. Did I like her, that side of her coming out? No, I wanted to see the good side of her that we'd all grown to love, that freed all the slaves and this and that. But when you put yourself into her situation, she lost Jorah, she lost Missandei, she's losing her relationship with Jon Snow because all he knows how to say anymore is she's my queen. She lost her dragon, she lost another dragon, and she wanted to make this hurt. She was losing it. She wanted, again, Mad King's daughter. There's a reason for that. You don't want to wake the dragon. There's a reason that was said. So I get it. I get why that side of her would come out, and I think it actually makes a lot of sense. You might not like it how it turned out, but does Game of Thrones ever give us what we want in the end? Did we want to see Ned Stark beheaded? Did we want to see the Red Wedding happen? I mean, really, the only time that we got what we wanted is when Joffrey died, when Ramsay died, when the Night King died, and some of you didn't like how the Night King died. Like when you actually look at it, it makes sense why Daenerys flipped her shit. And Jon Snow did what he had to do. And then a lot of people didn't like how Jon Snow, got sent back to the wall, and that was that. The whole Aegon Targaryen plot never really came to mean anything. It caused a lot of problems. It caused a lot of, it caused a lot of problems in the Targaryen camp, between Jon and Daenerys' relationship, Varys and Tyrion, well, Varys specifically trying to use that to sabotage everything. Tyrion, Sansa trying to use that to sabotage shit. It did a lot of destruction. It did a lot of disruption. But did it ultimately, when it was all said and done, actually come to the surface and mean anything? No, it really didn't. In fact, we may never know if that little council that was in the dragon pit in the end, where they, made Bran the king and Tyrion the hand and said Jon was going back to the wall, we may never even know if, outside of the few people that knew it to begin with, that whole council may not have ever known. In fact, they probably didn't know that Jon was the king. So, yeah. In fact, if they would have known that, hell, they might have been like, all right, well, he's the king. I don't know. Like that's actually very interesting. I don't think Grey Worm would have, because I don't think he gave a shit about Targaryens. He gave a shit about Daenerys and everything, she had done for them. So I don't think that would have mattered. But to everybody else, I don't know. It might have. I don't know. We may never know. Maybe not. I don't know. But then again, I thought Revenge of the Sith was going to be it for Star Wars, but damn it, The Force Awakens had to come along and say, no, I think it's going to go to this again. So, and now all these Star Wars shows we're getting, I think all these Star Wars shows are coming to right the so-called wrong that the sequel trilogy did for a lot of people, a lot of fans. I think it's going to be it's an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. So, and a Game of Thrones fan. And I think the ultimate message, the reason I wanted to go there, is don't let the way season 8 ended don't let that leave such a bad taste in your mouth that you forget how much you loved Game of Thrones in the first place and what drew you to it in the first place. And that is, we get so close to these characters and we lose it when we lose some of them, sometimes horribly. I mean, horrible deaths. It's what Game of Thrones is notorious for. But it's notorious for also not giving us what, we get close to these characters and then boom, destroyed, slaughtered at a freaking wedding. Like, they're notorious for not giving us what we want, but that's what always kept us coming back. So don't be so upset by the way season 8 ended that you're going to forget why you loved the show to begin with and just completely check out on House of the Dragon before it even fucking begins. So that is all for today. Tomorrow, we're going to get into some Star Wars stuff a little bit more. There's some exciting news potentially coming to the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Another potential reunion outside of Obi-Wan and Anakin, which that's not even going to be a reunion. That's going to be more of a clash than a fucking reunion. But an actual reunion might be coming to the Obi-Wan show next year when it comes out. So we'll be getting into that tomorrow, getting into the NFL matchups for the weekend, which is a lot. Pretty much every matchup is going to be a good one. So we'll get into that then. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Wilbur and Gold Show. I'm your host, Will Dalton, a.k.a. Wilbur and Gold. We'll see you next time.